Hello and welcome to another episode of the Collab Talk podcast, where we discuss the convergence of technology, business productivity, and collaboration culture. I'm excited about today. My guests are good friends Galen Keene, CEO of Lion Tech and a strategic operations lead at Smarter Consulting. And Shari Oswald is back in the podcast, a Microsoft MVP, Microsoft certified trainer, and owner of PowerUp Learning. So welcome to both of you.
Hello.
Thanks for having us. Yay.
Well, this is, so I don't know if you guys caught last week's episode. I had Sean McDonough and Jeff Vorosky, who are regulars on this, where we go through and talk about announcements. And we were going through kind of the big news that caught our eye out of the book of news out of Microsoft Ignite. But the three of us did not attend. And I really wanted to, like, this is, there's speculation. I don't know if it's officially out there that Microsoft is moving back towards the way that they used to do conferences at a bigger scale. And somebody woke up and realized that networking and having this massive, like, there's value in that versus trying to do a pure hybrid. We get all these people that can see our marketing info, but there's no interaction models that was started during, I get it, during pandemic, but stop that silliness now. Let's get back to real conferences. But I wanted to get your impression. So let's just start there. Like, overall impressions to be back at a big Ignite.
Yeah, I guess for me, I was at what was it, 2015, I think, that Ignite was in Chicago.
Yeah,
so it's kind
one.
of
That's right when it got
circle.
rebranded as from Tech Ed over to Ignite. And so,
Right.
yeah, I presented at that one.
Yeah, so it was kind of a full circle moment, right? It felt like, actually, talking about full circle, it really did feel like the pre-pandemic Ignites of old, right? From a networking perspective, seeing other people in the space, and I feel very fortunate that I'm able to attend many different Microsoft conferences, whether it's M365, Power Platform, Fabric. I'm very fortunate that I get to attend all of those. Ignite is different in that it combines, people from across all of those technologies and spaces into one location. So everybody was very friendly and excited to be around each other. And there was a ton of networking opportunities. And Microsoft does a great job of hosting all of those people in the community hub, which is where I found Shari when I arrived. So it was very cool to get to hang out with Shari and everyone else.
Yeah, same thing with you. My very first big event, well, I went to the SharePoint conference in Vegas, but I got started in the community with the MCT community at that 2015 Ignite. And coming full circle, this is where I was introduced to this amazing group of people that I'm proud and humbled to be part of. But just as a difference, when I walked in, I was trying to get to the registration desk to get my name tag and everything. It took me an hour to get across the lobby because people kept stopping me to say hello. And I'm like, I have missed this so much, having all that camaraderie. And then what really hit me was that the impact that we make. We have the opportunity, the reach that we have. When you're walking across the lobby and somebody recognizes you and understands that, we have been giving back, we have been helping people. And you don't get that in the virtual environment. Like, how many people looked at the blog post? I don't know. How many people watched the video? I don't know. But when you're walking across the lobby and you can't even get across the lobby because people are like, I love your blog, or it's so nice to meet you in person, it makes a huge difference.
There was a conference, I'm trying to remember, I think it was in Vegas. And I think it was one of the Power Platforms where I didn't actually have a ticket. I'm trying to remember. It wasn't, anyway, I go to a lot of events, but it was at the MGM. And so both of you, like where you leave, like down where we are down below, there's where the keynote area was. And there's that wall where you're coming around from this side, then curve and turn to the right to get to the keynote area. I stood in that area there for 3-4 hours on that, like the day that I got there. Didn't go to sessions, didn't go to see anything. I may have had a ticket to that event, but just stood there because that example of like people coming through, and I was seeing everybody venturing back and forth from that, and the hallway conversations, the serendipitous meetings and connections that you make. I mean, you cannot replace that.
Yeah. And I do know that there were some people that were in the conference center that didn't have tickets that were hanging out on that. That is a fact.
Yeah.
They just want to be part of it. And even if they couldn't go in and do the sessions and the hub and all of that.
So I think, like I said, I think Microsoft does a great job of finding a spot to host that type of experience. They called it the community hub, excuse me, at this event. And like I said, that's where I saw Shari, and it was a pretty cool area in that there was many round tables and a small theater in which you'd find, Scott Hanselman or Jeff Teeper, or, there's very small kind of intimate sessions that you won't find.
Like meet and greets.
Right. And you won't find those online, but there was some really cool interactions and questions that you could get answered. As well, at those round tables, there was hosted conversations. Each table had a different topic. You might find, very community focused. How do I start a user group conversations happening, or how do I become an MVP? As well as like AMAs on Intra ID or Security Copilot. They would change out the topics at each table like every hour, and then host these conversations, which is a great way to like get your questions answered by others in the community, experts at Microsoft, MVPs, RDs, the whole gamut, as well as hang out and just talk to people and have those experiences throughout the day. I found myself kind of gravitating back to that area throughout the conference because of the richness of those engagements.
I didn't go to any sessions. I figured any of the sessions that were worth my time were going to be recorded. I really capitalized on that in-person experience myself between my shifts at the Ask the Experts booth and walking around talking to people. I did a little bit of vendor booth crawling, but not a lot like I used to. But I really spent most of my time in the hub because of that. It was like, this is my tribe. These are the people that, and have people come up and ask you questions. It's just.
Do you remember when it was? I mean, early on, when they were experimenting with doing putting the recordings out there, like it was very exclusive. You had to go to the conference to get to the content. You had to go sit in the keynotes, of course, but then you had to go to the breakout sessions to get that information. Otherwise, documentation might still not be out for a long time. Now, I mean, you have within 24, 48 hours, pretty much every session that's out there. And for folks that are interested in knowing what's going on with Microsoft, it's free to have a digital pass to the Ignite content. And more Microsoft is pushing it out there and links out on YouTube and other places, but you can still go to, Microsoft Ignite 2024, register, get access to the full catalog, anything that was recorded with other supporting notes and slides and referenced articles and just tons of other stuff. Like, it's one of those things where it's a year of reading and watching and consuming that information and connecting with people.
And some of the content they gave a lot of previews of things. It's not even available yet.
Right.
So yeah.
So you can see, right. So you don't know what's on the roadmap. But to both of your points, it's like it doesn't replace the face-to-face, the conversations. That's why I'm for here watching a lot of it at home. And I was more interested in watching the conversations, the questions, and I would see comments and be like, "Oh, what are they talking about?" They're a bunch of MVPs are upset about something. What was that announcement? Go look into it from there. Or people are really excited about this. Oh, I need to go. I didn't even see that. I need to go take a look at that. So that's something you can do online, but be there in person. That's why I love conferences. I'm more interested in the questions that are asked by the audience in the room than what is being marketed to from up front.
Yeah. Or the questions they come up and ask you, like the Ask the Experts. I was in the modern workplace and AI. My demos that I had available to me were PowerPoint, Excel, and Word. There were no kiosks for Planner, for bookings, unlike all the other applications that are in, the waffle. Me, where's the waffle? So it was interesting how many people still have a lot of interest in that. They were sending people to me for those questions because there wasn't a designated place for it. And, there's having somebody that can actually answer those questions instead of putting it on a posting board or something and hope somebody answers it. They got to walk up and ask somebody that.
Well, that's what I miss about the old model for the expo hall. So I mean, you guys know me, and I work with a lot of partners, mostly partners, and especially the ISVs in the space. But to go and into the expo hall, find all the partner solutions and have those conversations, find out like, what are you doing? What's different? What's unique about what's your value proposition? But also seeing every product team represented. So when they cut back on that and just have like the high level of a few, like we're still not back to pre-pandemic what we had at that conference, because I went and I had like a 2-hour conference with the Dynamics guys learning about their marketing platform. I'm a marketing guy, and understanding that back end, what they're doing, how it's integrated, what their stories are out of that. And I guess this is why maybe they weren't like all those teams weren't there this time, is because I remember I had this like 2-hour conversation and maybe 2 or 3 people in those 2 hours came up besides me. So I know that's a very expensive trip for those people to come out and just talk to Christian and 2 or 3 other people.
But it was invaluable to you.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Even if that one person comes up, it was invaluable to them. So.
That's a great point, because I know this conference, I had a specific interest in speaking with a Microsoft partnering team to understand how to partner with Microsoft more successfully. A tremendous footprint on the expo floor was dedicated by Microsoft to those topics. So that was refreshing to see. And again, those experiences, and especially having the conversations with certain people in the hierarchy of that area of Microsoft, you can't get unless you're there.
Yeah.
Those conversations just do not happen otherwise.
What other thing?
Fire into this one. That's why normally they don't have that representation. That they usually have a designated conference in summer for the partner. So that's
what I was about to say. Like I've not heard much chatter about that. So my primary conference in the Microsoft ecosystem, there's the 3 big, the marquee events is the way that I refer to it. So the Microsoft produced events, Ignite, which historically, traditionally was the IT Pro. This is the how we did it, how we're using it, announcements made it, product, things like that. That's every fall. In the spring, you have Build. And Build is the engineer developer focused. And so that's where it's the leading, bleeding edge. This is what we're doing, but it's very, tech focused. So like I never attended a single Build in person. I've been there. I was there 3 times as an RD MVP for the activities that were happening outside of the conference, but related to the conference. I went to that and then skipped out the rest of the conference, went back home after that. But the partner conference, it used to be the Worldwide Partner Conference. It got rebranded as Inspire, was every July. I went 10 years in a row, and then pandemic happened. And the online model was like, I'm sorry, Microsoft, useless, because just what you guys have described. I didn't go to a single session. I went to the keynote, saw the announcements and the awards stuff, but I spent the entire time in the expo hall, in one-on-one meetings, in the meeting designated spaces, to the World Lounge, where I could go and say, hey, I want to target, I want to do business in South Africa. I'm going to go over to the South Africa Lounge, meet partners and attendees from South Africa that would hang out in that lounge, or go over to Australia or the Canadian Lounge, and then walking around talking to people in the expo hall. And then they had the Inspire stage. They had soft topic skills, development type sessions that were in the expo hall in these mini theaters. And I presented at multiple of those. Similar with ESPC, which this goes live while I'm in Stockholm at ESPC. in fact, on this day that this goes live, I have an Inspire stage session where I'm talking about leveraging AI to create content. So higher volume, higher quality content. So it's not, has nothing to do with the underlying technology. And in fact, I'd say it's whether you're using Copilot or the free Bing or ChatGPT or whatever it is. There's dozens of great tools out there for writing, but I talk about that in strategies for content development. Those kinds of topics are fantastic for this event. And you have technical people that go for those sessions to hear the roadmap that are like, hey, we also have these same business issues and the application of technology for these business reasons. How was that footprint, the Inspire footprint? Because they kind of combined, they said they were combining, but did it feel like there were two conferences in one? Or was that just kind of an add-on?
No, I guess my perspective is that there were sessions each day specific to that kind of Inspire theme that you're referring to, that partnering theme. Definitely, it felt integrated in. It did create, scheduling conflict, right, where you have to choose, and so you're looking at, what's available online after the, after the conference or not, to help guide you there. But yeah, there was plenty of sessions. Now, I don't think it was as many as you might get at a dedicated show like Inspire, but I do think that there was a large number of them. Speaking of the networking aspect of all of this, at the attendee party, hanging out with Shari, she introduced me to some Microsoft partners up in the Minnesota area, and we began to collaborate on, what did we think of the Inspire or partnering themed sessions throughout the week? What did we gain out of them? And that connection then, is persisting after the conference, so we can compare notes and try to improve our ability to partner with Microsoft. So from that perspective, I found it very rich. I'd say that there was quite a bit, probably not as much as a dedicated show, but enough to make me feel like I got that value that I was looking for.
My only issue, and it's kind of the same thing I had with Ignite from the beginning, because they used to have dedicated conferences. You had the SharePoint conference, you had the SQL conference, you had where people could focus in on that one technology, and then you throw them all into one big conference. And if you're a small and medium business or somebody that wears multiple hats, it's really hard to focus in on the technologies that you need to, find out the most information about. And when everything's all together, like Galen said, you've got scheduling conflicts. Well, now you've got partners who are, maybe they're not large partners, and the same thing at the partner conference, they can focus in on partnering and what that means. If they go to Ignite, they can focus on the tech. Well, now when you roll them together, those partners are trying to split their focus for the
And
week.
there's less, there are fewer topics spread across that audience. Yeah, for
I'd almost
one,
like to see like a pre or a post for the partners,
right,
and let them focus in. I think that would be a better.
that's why I hope that somebody gets their head on straight and they go back to, I hate July in Vegas, but having a standalone partner conference for the sales and marketing folks to do nothing but network, like there has been no replacement for that. And I don't want to get into this whole thing, but like during pandemic, there were Microsoft senior leaders that are like, oh no, people are partnering through the virtual stuff. Like, no, they're not.
They're not.
They are not. It is.
Those are my prospects.
Yeah,
the attendees are not my prospects. It's the partners, because I want to be their training person.
And to go and do those face-to-face meetings, like I get how expensive and how big that is, but again, and Microsoft said, well, we're doing these, these smaller regional versions of this event. Like I know all of the partners in my region. I want to meet the partners in other regions. I can't go to a dozen other events around the world to go to that. That partner conference was that centralized once a year, massive. I mean, it was just for a number of companies I worked for, a massive spend, bigger than Ignite spend, about building those partner to partner relationships. And it's,
well, we just happen to randomly run into the guys that I know from going to the Minnesota events. And I'm like, hey, have you met Galen? And that was really cool. But what are the chances, in 10,000 people or 14,000 people, whatever it was, that I'm going to run in, yeah, you run into people you see all the time, but to be able to help somebody else network and meet new people. Same thing we had with the MVP community, because, Galen is applied again for the MVP. Like, have you met Betsy? Here's Betsy Weber. You just don't get that in a virtual event at all, ever.
Just so you know, Galen, behind the scenes, we're like, Betsy, what the hell? Come on, Galen. Like, what do we need to do? Do we shake somebody into, anyway? Yeah, Galen for folks that don't, like, Galen's one of those people, like a lot of it in the MVP community, where, like, I'm sure you get it all the time, is like, wait, Galen, you're not already at MVP? Like that.
Yeah,
question.
same thing I got for 5 years. They're like, I thought you already were. I'm like, how many conversations were had in my presence that people didn't realize they maybe shouldn't have been having because I wasn't an MVP at the time? But I was a different
discussion.
That never happens.
That never happened.
Well, I do want to jump into some of the highlights. We were kind of organizing our thoughts before recording. I'll split the screen here or share it over here, but
I'm under the same NDA as MCT, though, so just so you know, I wouldn't have talked about it.
Very different, and then nobody knows what an RD is, so
of course,
that's great. Yeah. But I always say, again, if you're not familiar with it, if you've not looked through it, all the major announcements that were made at the conference, you can find in the book of news. And this is something that you look for with Build and with Ignite every year, where the major announcements that they push out there. And no matter how much, as MVPs, that we're on all of these calls, like every month, there's just dozens of calls that you have to pace yourself, pick your battles of what you want to join in. There's so many opportunities to learn about roadmap and ask questions and interact with the product teams, which is fantastic. There's still always so much that they surprise us with. We still we didn't know that they were going to drop. They intentionally do that to
even as MVPs, we didn't know about it. Right. Like, a lot of times they give us preview of things.
But you can find that, dig around in it. You're interested in the Power Platform. Here's the official announcements. What's great about this, just to show you as an example, in every one of the sections, as you go through, read about it, the major points. And then there's always the additional resources. Here's a blog. Like you're talking about the breakouts, a breakout discussion or a presentation around relevant topics on that announcement, or the full, theater experience for that. So fantastic resources. Highly recommend that you bookmark Book of News. But some of the highlights. So, like, I pulled these pieces up here, like the full keynotes. Of course, they were live streamed, they're out there. But I always recommend go and look at the top level. Satya, you've got Guthrie on there. Rajesh is on there, who's Teeper's boss as well. So over on the collaboration side of that. It's always important to see, again, that high level, how Microsoft is positioning that. I've got a link here too. There's a number of great write-ups. The Verge always does a good job of, like, here's the things that stand out from their perspective. A lot of online chatter criticism at the new logo, where people are just like, come on, like, I could have created that logo. That looks like it was hastily created.
Oh, like they slapped that little M365 on top of it.
Yeah. Which Copilot might have built that.
Yeah, that was the question. Is like that. I wanted to, and I should put the link in here too. As the let's see, Microsoft designs the iPod box. I resurface that like once a year. People that have not seen that, it was a video that's hilarious. That was actually paid for by a design group at Microsoft, but poking fun at Microsoft, recognizing that we're really bad at packaging design and logos and branding. And so if Microsoft had created the iconic, simplistic iPod box, how they would have butchered it. It's fantastic. So I'll provide that link. But yeah, you've got all the kind of the announcements that they were kind of live streaming that's going on. But I know the probably the biggest news. What were people talking about?
The agents. That was the biggest one that I made an impact for me when I went back and watched the keynote, but I was hearing about it already on the floor. They're talking about all the new agents that are coming out just because it makes people more productive. We pay people for their skill set in certain areas, not to do busy work. So let's take the busy work out of it and let them focus in on what they're good at and what they're trained and experienced to do. And I think that's a big one.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that amongst the three of us, we all focus on implementation, adoption. Christian, I know you used the word engagement. What happens after adoption is engagement, and how do you govern all of this? I went to a pre-day lab where we discussed just that. How do you, prepare organizations for Copilot? How do you implement Copilot? And how do you transition from the adoption to the engagement phase? And I think that engagement phase really does, the rubber meets the road with the various agents that you can deploy. So these out-of-box agents help people and help enterprises with that engagement exercise by putting the agent that people need within their line of work, right? Within their day-to-day. So that was very exciting. And they're everywhere now, whether that's SharePoint or I think Shari was referring to Planner, and there's a number of different ones. Project manager agents, a whole host of different out-of-box agents available.
And I think the funniest, I watched Come Cloud with Us, and Joy Apple was on this. She goes, "Am I the only one that pictures the guy in the hat with the trench coat, like the secret agent?" Like, no, I did too. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, it's like the secret agent. What was that? There was a cartoon back in when I was a kid that had like this dude that had a little trench coat. I can see it. I don't remember what cartoon it was, but
I know what you're talking about. Well, there's I know that there's a lot of talk again, like, well, and people immediately want to jump in and like, well, how do we build these things? And so there was a lot of the Copilot Studio, the agent builder capability, the use of templates and creating templates, so reusable templates. So you can even kind of standardize how the agents are built within your organization. And as we talk about, Galen just mentioned that when we talk about Power Platform automation and now Copilot automation, a lot of these pieces that, in fact, I just was advising somebody who leads an IT team at a mid-sized company as that is starting to roll out and look at that level of automation with Power Platform. I said, you should get in front of this and have like deploy the center of excellence, the COE, have some level of oversight over all of this. It will get out of hand very quickly. You need to understand what are people building, what's actually being used, what content is being leveraged, what rules need to be in place. Is it adhering to or violating our policies, our standards to keep us compliant, secure, all of those things. It doesn't have to be burdensome. We're not talking about building a bureaucracy above everything, but there should be a pass through, a review where there's oversight and awareness of what people are building and where, and its business value. Something's being picked up and used by more and more of the organization. Was it really architected to be scalable, supportable, secure, kind of all those things, versus, hey, I just needed some automation for myself and my 2 coworkers. I built this thing and now suddenly everybody wants to use it. That was never its intended purpose. So build with purpose. That's part of governance.
And that came up in a recent class I was teaching. And what I like about the agents is you can actually focus what it's grounded on, so that you're not worried about all the garbage that's in you're not searching your entire environment and crawling your entire environment. You can focus it on a certain thing. So the client that I was working with, they're a green energy company, and we have thousands and thousands of pages of research that our salespeople or our marketing people having to crawl through to be able to use that. And they're like, what we need is something that will just focus in on that SharePoint library, and here's where all this stuff is, and give us the highlights so we can create an RFP or a marketing thing or compete agreement, compete statement or something like that. And this, I was like, I kind of heard about this before, but I'm like, I can't talk about it yet during that class. You know, it was one of those NDA things that we couldn't talk about yet.
Yeah.
And I said, just wait till after Ignite, and then we'll talk again. So, yeah.
That's really cool, and I think that was one of the themes that I picked up on throughout the conference was, hey, this is AI, it's Copilot, it's everywhere, it's in everything. But I think the three of us have probably been saying the same things throughout this transformation, which is you still need to stick to the best practices that we've always stuck to for how we develop, implement, adopt, and promote engagement of this new capability. So, you had, I think, Azure AI Foundry, or which is part of Studio up there. There's some really cool best practices that you're going to hear from, industry leaders, Scott Hanselman, Mark Rusinovich, that are saying, hey, when you go build an agent, do you need the 4.0 model? Maybe not. Shari was just saying, let's ground it in one SharePoint library of data. And maybe we need a model that is not inclusive of everything on the internet, right? We can start to have much more accurate responses to prompts, more performant responses if we right size the model that's being used. And so through Azure AI Foundry, you can kind of choose your own model, right? You can customize it with your security and compliance requirements. Very cool. In fact, around this, Scott Hanselman and Mark Rusinovich had a session which wasn't like how to use Azure AI Foundry and Azure AI Studio, but it was like the most entertaining breakout that I attended all week. I've watched it several times afterwards. I've even watched it with my family, and they enjoyed it. They understood it because of how these guys present, but they leverage that technology to create responsible AI solutions or applications, which I think if we all think of each of these agents as an application, it will help us understand better how to develop them and roll them out to enterprises.
Yeah, in fact, I think some of the chatter, I just happened to tune in as I was working. I go into social and I see some conversations like live talking about this session. So I was able to catch like the final third of it live, and then went back and rewatched it. Yeah, so we'll have this, of course, the notes. Highly recommend people go and check this out. They're always both, I mean, they're great presenters anyway, but very entertaining to watch. But even for a non-developer to watch and be able to follow along and get useful insights and information out of this, it's great.
Well, and again, I got to meet Scott Hanselman in person this time. I think I've met him once before, but he's just such the nicest guy, and
he's a very approachable guy.
I was gonna say approachable is the word I would think of. He's just
So that was great, and I know that Mark had there was a few other sessions. I mean, what's great about this too is you go in and look for either one of these. You can go in and search on like this one, BRK246, where he's going through the inside the Azure stuff. I know, Galen, you were interested in that. But you see all of his other sessions in his profile and easily jump around. But
yeah, very cool. Ignite's one of those conferences where you get people from all different backgrounds, not just from the modern workplace kind of M365 space. So in this session, there was just all of these announcements and discussions around what's happening in a data center. Where is Microsoft taking the technology? What are they introducing? Some really cool stuff about Azure Boost DPUs and how they are going to leverage that in custom AI solutions. So I highly recommend going through and checking out this breakout as well. It gives you that background information around what's happening on the hardware side to support what we're doing on the software side.
Well, it's over the years too. It's like Microsoft has been very, again, cutting edge with the experimenting with like the underwater, so ocean current cooled data center model. Dropping these like the cargo boxes down where some of them were, like up in the North Sea above Scotland or something or other. Yeah. Some of them. So trying to decrease the the carbon footprint and the power usage, tapping into leveraging the wind power from that region and the ocean currents, but also just to cool. I mean, so much of the cost of the servers, the hardware, is keeping them cool. Running these, especially with the demands of AI, it's going to be even more critical. But to pay attention to what Microsoft is doing, where they're innovating on the server side of things, on the hardware side, it sometimes is a great leading indicator of what is happening with is it leading? I guess it's a lagging indicator in some respects for what the software is doing, like AI driving it. But it is primarily a leading indicator of what's happening as Microsoft is looking 5-10 years or more down the line, how they can improve the performance of the system, which enables them to do more on the cloud side.
Well, there was one slide that I saw recently that I can't remember which session it was in, but they had like how long it took to adopt different technologies. How long was the telephone in 10 million homes? How long did it take for the television to get into 10 million homes? And there are these big bars, and then 10 million, was for Copilot was like this itty bitty blip at the end. It like took nothing to get 10 million consumers. So the fact that they need to find the way for that processing power, I think that's one of the, like Microsoft Teams, they experienced the growth in 10 years that they expected in 10 years and 10 months because of the pandemic. I think they're the same thing. They're trying to not end up in that same dilemma with Copilot because they just can't handle the truth because the demand is so high.
The other thing they used to always share was like, fastest to $1 billion business inside of Microsoft. When I was an employee, I mean, that was a big deal. That we were, SharePoint, and then Office 365 got to $1 billion faster than SharePoint did. And then, Teams outpaced both of them. And, so I don't know if I've not seen that stat for Copilot, but I have to believe if it's not as fast, it's right there with the others quickest to $1 billion business and beyond for Microsoft. I know we're living on time here. A couple more things. Like, I really liked this announcement.
Yeah.
This is a cool device. And it made me think of back in my days when I was, working for the phone company Pacific Bell, and their headquarters in San Ramon, California. At one time, they had these hoteling suites. So they were testing out. So this is in the mid 90s. They were testing out individuals that would give up their dedicated office space and work hybrid, sometimes from home. But they would come in and plug into the terminal, and you've got your ID. We had these little key fob, because we didn't have Authenticator running on our phones because phones weren't around. They weren't a thing yet quite. But
I had my Nokia.
Yeah. So I had an early version too. The old, what was it? What was the block one? There was the Nokia were nice. It was the Ericsson, which was, industrial. Anyway, but we didn't have, it wasn't used as a security measure. So you'd have like the key fobs. But when you go log in from anywhere from a terminal, you've got the ugly screen, but it would pop up all of your data in the system. And so when I saw this, I thought, it's an edge device dedicated to, Windows 365 and your accounts, all the cloud stuff. Why do I need to have everything else? This box can support 2 4K monitors, a keyboard and mouse. It has 3 or 4 USB inputs for that. Like, that's it. So you can easily travel anywhere, unplug the monitor, HDMI, plug it into this thing. You've got your whole computer as long as there's internet and a monitor.
Yeah, and I've got my little folding keyboard that I have and my little flat mouse. I mean, talk about not having to drag all the hardware around. That makes me happy.
And the last thing, Galen, I'll let you end on this one.
Yeah, Shari's talked about walking the vendor hall and talking with various vendors. This vendor was represented there. They kind of have an integration with that Windows Link setup, but imagine being able to receive a YubiKey, which is a device that you can plug in to like Windows Link, as an example, to your laptop, and you use this device to authenticate. And so from like an admin point of view, you could order these devices and have them sent to your, employees or your team members and email them. Like, I thought this was just quite interesting because you never want to email like a password or anything like that, but you could email somebody a PIN number. They receive this YubiKey in the mail. They go to use this YubiKey, enter in that PIN number, and never need to know their password. They enter that PIN, they get everything set up, they log in through link to M365, and they're ready to go about their day. It is a seamless way to distribute, login capability. Awesome. Passwordless, zero trust in the forefront. Like, it's all here. That was really exciting for me to see.
See, I know that there's the services that are out there in the cloud. There's LastPass and other services like that. So, like, who remembers their passwords kind of thing? You just have to remember the master password to get into that. Yep. But then I'm always nervous. Like, I'm in the system. I'm like on my phone, on my device, I'm running VPN hardware. But here I'm getting ready to go on the road. If I were to log into something, to have to log into LastPass, for example, to access that, like, who saw me log in with that password into that device? Like, so this gets you past that risk.
No doubt.
The other side is that somebody gets their hand on your YubiKey.
There's measures you need to take there for sure. And then you're going to ESPC, right? So you're traveling out of country. I think it's really interesting just throughout the week, all of the security and compliance, DLP, and information protection capabilities, just kind of the umbrella of that layer of topic over implementation, adoption, and engagement was very strong. So, I think that everybody should take a look at that because it's even more crucial than it ever has been. 2025 is going to be the year where there's a lot of services work in that space.
I know the dates. They announced the date and location, so it's going to be Ignite will be in San Francisco. Easier for us West Coast people, so that's great.
I'm already looking at hotels. I'm not waiting for the $400 hotel bill this time.
Yep, there you go. Hey, easy enough commute in. I mean, I commuted for years into the city, so I'm an East Bay guy. So yeah,
that's why I said you can stay along the train line anywhere there, and pretty much because it drops you right there at the Westfield Mall. It's like a 2-block walk from there. It's no big deal.
Yeah, because riding BART in the morning is a fantastic experience, Shari. I did that. Walking down, I would get off. I'd go in extra early. For the East Bay, and for those that know the Bay Area. So I lived when I grew up in Diablo, but when I was married, moved down to Brentwood, and so I would drive over into Walnut Creek and grab BART and go into the city, and would often I'd arrive there in San Francisco early morning and walk south of Market down to our offices, which at the time. The South of Market was still pretty sketchy. It's cleaned up nice down there for the most part. It's going to be great to see it move to a new location, and highly recommend that people check it out. In-person events are kind of the thing to do. Of course, you can be at Vegas in May for the M365 conference, and we'll all be there. So
see you there.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. So Shari, Galen, for your time. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll check out the blog for the links to all the things that we shared, and we'll see you when we see you.
Thanks for having me, Christian. Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to the Collab Talk podcast. New episodes are published weekly, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and most other podcast platforms. Thanks for listening.